Hello all, in this video I will show you how to configure cluster on Palo Alto Firewall. So focus would be on active passive. I'll create one more video to cover active and some troubleshooting stuff. So let me first log into the firewalls. So we have two firewalls, PAN 1 and PAN 2, and then for testing we have two routers, R1 and R2. So let me first log into the firewall and configure management IP address. So username is admin and password admin. Go to configuration mode and set the management IP address. Set device config system IP address 192.168.1.199 and net mask would be 255.255.255.0. So by default the IP address on Palo Alto firewall is 192.168.1.1. So we have configured now management IP address as 1.199. Enter, and we need to commit the changes from candidate configuration to running configuration. So meanwhile we can configure the management IP address on Palo Alto Firewall 2 as well. So go to PAN 2, username admin, password admin, configuration mode, set device config system IP address 192.168.1.200 is the management IP address on firewall 2. Net mask will be /24, which is 255.255.255.0, and then commit the configuration. Back to firewall 1, I could see configuration has been successfully committed. Go to the browser and try to access the firewall. So this is old window. Let me close this, open again, https 192.168.1.199, username admin, password admin. So very first task will be to configure interfaces, their IP addresses, zone configuration, and if any routing is required, in that case we will do the routing as well. So that will be the very first configuration. Once that is done, we'll start with the configuration of high availability or active passive. So let's wait for a second to load this. Click on close, go to networks, and we see nothing is configured as of now. So only management IP address is configured on the management interface. So one by one we will use in our topology for the LAN connectivity. 1 by 2 we will use to connect this interface with the WAN, which is R2 for example. And 1 by 3 and 1 by 4 will have interface type as HA. So 1 by 3 will act as a HA1 interface and 1 by 4 will act as a HA2 interface. So I will cover in brief what exactly is there in HA1 and HA2 interfaces. So click on Ethernet 1 by 1, interface type L3, virtual router default, security zone we have to create, which is LAN in this case. Click on OK. Go to IP address, add, and the IP address on this interface will be 10.10.10.12/24. Okay. Similarly, go to 1 by 2, interface type L3, virtual router default, and security zone we need to create as WAN. Go to IP version 4, add 20.20.20.12/24 and click on OK. So we have two interfaces configured. One will be connected to LAN and second will be connected to WAN segment. 1 by 3 and 1 by 4 will act as a cluster interfaces, so specify the interface type as HA. Okay. Similarly, 1 by 4 will act as a HA2 interface, so interface type will be HA. Close. Let's commit this configuration, and phase 2 we will start the cluster configuration. Go to firewall 2, which is HTTPS 192.168.1.200. Same stuff, we need to configure 1x1 interface, 1x2 interface, and 1x3 and 1x4 will be selected as HA interfaces. So username admin, password admin. Okay. Firewall 1, we could see configuration has been completed successfully. All the interface we could see link state is up. On firewall 2, go to networks, select 1x1 interface, L3, virtual router default, and then security zone is LAN. IP address has to be the same which was there on firewall 1, which is 10.10.10.12/24. So in the configuration of high availability, I will explain why the IP addresses are same on both the firewalls. Sorry. Go to 1x2 interface, layer 3 as a type, then default virtual router, and then for example WAN is the zone. IP address 20.20.20.12/24. Okay. 1x3 has to be HA1. Okay. And 1x4 will be again interface type is HA, and we will configure this interface as HA2. So we are done with the basic configuration. Let's commit the configuration changes to this firewall as well. And meanwhile, let's start making cluster configuration on firewall 1. So go to device, then high availability, and here we have to do the configuration related to the cluster. So very first step, enable the HA, then group ID. So this group ID has to be same on both the firewalls, firewall 1 and firewall 2, and this number could be anything between 1 to 63. So group ID in this case will be 1, for example. Group ID has to be same on both the firewalls, so I have selected the number as 1. Mode is either active passive or active active. So this video will focus on active passive, so we will select this option. Then enable config synchronization. So this configuration setting will help in replicating dynamic or runtime objects from firewall 1 to firewall 2. So this has to be enabled. Then it says peer HA1 IP address. So HA1 interface is being used to sync the configuration, plus hello messages and heartbeat messages will be exchanged over this HA1 link, and this is layer 3 interface, so we have to specify the IP address on HA1 interface. So it says peer HA1 IP address, so peer HA1 IP address will be 1.1.1.2 and my own IP address will be 1.1.1.1. So in this video there is no backup of HA1 interface, so this option will leave as blank. Click on OK. Then second option, active passive settings. So by default, passive link state interfaces are in shutdown, or it can be in auto mode. So both the firewalls will have same IP address. So our broadcast for that IP address will reach to both firewalls. So master firewall will always respond to the ARP request, and backup firewall will never respond to the ARP request because of this configuration. So that is the reason IP addresses are same on both firewalls. So when we say shutdown, so in this case, the moment failover will happen, first interface will come up and then they will start responding to the traffic. Whereas in case of auto, they are in type of basically soft shut mode. So interfaces will be up, but they will not respond to any ARP request or any traffic basically. So it is always recommended. So auto sometimes may save time, because we need not to wait for interfaces to come up and then start processing traffic. Whereas in case of shutdown, interfaces will first come up and then after that they will start responding to the traffic. But we can avoid network loops in case of shutdown. So I'll prefer shutdown here and then click on OK. Election settings, which firewall will become master and which firewall will become backup. So number closer to 0 will be given higher priority. So for example, this firewall configured as priority 50 and other firewall we will configure with priority as 100. So 50 will become master. So in this lab, preemption will be disabled and there is no heartbeat backup. So click on OK. Now HA1 interface configuration. Click on settings. So which interface will act as a HA1 interface? So 1 by 3 for example will act as a HA interface. IP address 1.1.1.1 and the subnet mask will be 255.255.255.0. If you want to enable encryption, you can enable this option, and gateway is not required because both firewalls are directly connected to each other with same segment IP address. So click on OK. Go to HA1 we don't need for this lab because there is no backup interface for HA1. Go to data link, which is HA2, click on settings, and we have to first select 1 by 4 interface, which will act as a HA2 interface, and HA2 interface basically is being used to replicate the dynamic or runtime objects. So session table entries, NAT table information, dynamic routing, DHCP lease information, IPsec assays, these are all dynamic objects, so that will be replicated over this interface. And if you see transport, by default transport is Ethernet, so IP address is not required in this case, so it will be a layer 2 communication. So click on OK and commit the changes. And last was HA2 backup, we don't have in this lab, so that is not required. Click on commit and cluster will be enabled in this case. Now cluster configuration has to be done on firewall 2 as well. So go to device, high availability, enable this option. Group ID has to be same, which is 1. Mode is active passive. And now peer IP address in this case will be 1.1.1.1. So click on OK. So we could see cluster is now enabled. Interface link state will be shut down. Okay. Go to election settings 100 because this firewall will act as a backup firewall. Click on OK. HA1 interface. HA1 interface is Ethernet 1 by 3 and the IP address would be 1.1.1.2 because the peer has 1.1.1. So netmask 255.255.255.0. Click on OK. Backup is not required. HA2 we need to specify interface as 1 by 4 for the synchronization of dynamic objects. Click on OK and nothing else. Click on commit. So once commit has been done, we should be able to see firewall 1 as a master firewall, active firewall, and firewall 2 as a backup firewall. Let's wait for a second and then we should be able to see cluster. So go to firewall 1, close this, dashboard, go to widgets, system, high availability. Let's see. So we see local firewall as active firewall. Rest everything we could see is up, everything is matching, running configuration is already synchronized. Peer firewall is as of now in status as initial. So we should be able to see in a few seconds. Let me refresh that. The peer firewall is now back up. So we could see cluster is now up and running, configuration is being synchronized, local firewall is active and remote firewall is passive. Go to firewall 2, same stuff, dashboard, widgets, system, high availability. Here we see local firewall is passive and the peer firewall is active and everything is being synchronized. So let me go to firewall 1. Go to policies. Let's create a test policy to allow traffic from R1 to R2, and that policy should be synchronized from firewall 1 to firewall 2 over HA1 link. So click on add. I'll not explain much about the options available we have in the security policy because there will be a separate video. In that video, I will cover each and every tab of a security policy in detail. So here let's write test policy from R1 to R2. Source zone I want as LAN. Source address could be any. User is not required. Go to destination. WAN zone, destination address is any, application any, service application default. What exactly is this application default? We will discuss in application identification. And action is allow. I want to enable logging, for example. For testing, I have enabled start and end. Which is recommended, which has to be enabled, that we will discuss in security policy videos. So click on OK and commit this configuration. Now I should be able to see this configuration being replicated from firewall 1 to firewall 2 in real time. So I should be able to see that on firewall 2. Let's wait for a second. Let the policy to be committed successfully and then we can test. Meanwhile, we can configure routers. We have R1 and R2. By default, username and password is same. Vita, same stuff. Go to configuration mode, specify physical interface, set interface, Ethernet, ETH0, address 10.10.10.1/24. One default route, set protocol, static route 0.0.0/0. Next hop is firewall IP address 10.10.10.12. And commit is required on this router too. Go to R2, login with default credentials, specify IP address on physical interface which is Ethernet 0 address, and this is connected to firewall interface 2020.20x. So IP address here will be 2020.21/24. Set protocol static reverse route 0.0.0.0/0. Next hop 20.20.20.12. Let me enable telnet service here and commit. So from R1 to R2 we should be able to do a telnet. Go back to the browser, close this. We have a policy here. Go to firewall 2 policies and we should be able to see same stuff here. We could see policy. So I could see configuration has been replicated. Go to firewall 1 dashboard and configuration as of now is not synchronized completely, so it may take some time, but we could see policy has been replicated, so it may be synchronizing some other stuff. So go to R1 and try to do a telnet. So telnet 20.20.20.1. I can see telnet prompt, username, password, and we are effectively on router 2, which is 20.20.21. So we could see traffic is being processed. Now bring down firewall 1 and we should see this session should continue. I should be able to execute command on this session after the failover of firewall because the session table entries has been replicated. So go to firewall 1, device. This is type 1, how we can do the failover. So there are different failover conditions which we will cover in troubleshooting under link and path monitoring. Right now I am focusing on manual failover. So suspend local device. Okay. So go to firewall 2 dashboard. We should be able to see this firewall is now active. Peer firewall is in suspended state. Back to R1 and try to execute commands, show interface. So I could see after the failover traffic has been shifted to firewall 2 and I could see commands are being executed and my session is still live. Let's do exit. I'm back on R1. So that's all for this video. Try to replicate this lab on your laptop. In second video, I will cover how to configure active, some testing, how test could be done, then link monitoring and path monitoring I will cover in that specific video, how the failover can be done using these configuration settings. If you have any questions, call me. Thank you very much. That's all. Bye.